for this nation and your people. We thank you for the leadership that you have provided and the fact that you have chosen us among the millions to basically represent your people. Papa God, this morning as we venture into our deliberations, I'd like to pray for the situations in Europe, and we pray that your common sense, understanding and peace will prevail in Ukraine and in Russia, and in any other countries that are basically want to take sides on both sides. Oh God, you are a loving Father of peace, and we pray that you will intervene on this occasion. Lord, we thank you for the people of Papua New Guinea, and we pray, oh God, the fact that you have elected us, you've allowed us to be elected to govern your people with wisdom, knowledge, and love. I pray for this morning for our Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition and all members of Parliament, oh God, that in whatever we deliberate must be in the best interest of your people, because they are the people that you yourself have created. Father, I pray this morning that in whatever way we may have transgressed against you, forgive us, Lord. Humble us and humiliate us. In humility, we can be able to serve your people in the true spirit, the way you wanted us. We come before you this morning, O God, Lord, that we now kneel together in unison to pray the prayer that your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, have taught us to pray. Let's pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Petitions, notices, ask him in our talk sabe for 10-5 minutes. Honorable Governor of Loan City.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Give me opportunity to ask him. There's a question without notice. You go along, Treasurer. Before me asking question, maybe I give him legal context long end, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you may organize survey what is needed to develop a thriving economy. All the kind management, fiscal regime, all this like you may survey. Treasurer, I survey all this like too, Mr. Speaker. Businessman before I come to Parliament, and now Treasurer, I may understand. One factor where we contribute long good thriving economy is accessibility long. All corporates, individual, everybody to banking, finance, accounts, and all the related facilities long banking system. Long, Mr. Speaker, long country also in China, Malaysia, Singapore. Today you go, you like opening one account. One go, Balu give you account. Balu opening account, blow you, lo bank, any bank. I'll give you number, you like in card too, I'll give you card. And you look in economy long, this long triple country. It's a thriving economy. It's a sustainable economy. It's growing. Now, Mr. Speaker, you may now. Yes, you may got concern about all these illegal transaction. You may talk on them. all fraudulent transaction, all this kind, you may work at consent long, corrupt practice, na kind of thing. But on the flip side, emi give him heavy long all man marry SMEs, even all corporates too, blow you me inside long, country long, accessing banking. Recently, some all workman marry employees, all I go open him a bank account and take him a long time here. Can question only ask him. Some account holders now. Account belong all work pass him. BSP work pass him without giving notice, without giving an explanation. Ask him all too whether all involved long, fraudulent transaction or this kind. So yes, you may say this maybe some company or some individuals are truly only involved with this, but not everybody. Mr. Speaker, now how banking work deal you mean BSP or even now Kina Banko, it looks like everybody is a suspect. It's like, yeah, by stopping corruption, all this are fraudulent activity, but it's also suffocating. Now stopping flow of cash, now movement of, business, now kind of thing. There is that flip side. Mr. Speaker, too, you may say he got on the flip side too. Maybe you can call him on some black market banking.
Honorable Governor.
Okay, me come to question now.
You.
Question for me, me go long treasurer. I'm also. Can the treasurer meet with the Nupla Governor Bank, the Central Bank, and all the commercial bank now raise this concern so that you got clear criteria and procedure how to open account, how to refuse account, how to, if you are going to close an account, what are the criteria? Enough by you may come with a criteria that give him opportunity, or this account holder person. Two, what will happen to those line where you may refuse him or bank refuse him or open him an account long? Where will they go? What are the criteria that apply in other bank? If not like BSP, now all by go Kina Bank or all this micro bank, same criteria apply. He got flexibility. Or by you me give him more time to clean up the act. He got time limit like, okay, you go work yourself, or you by come open him new account, and this is what you should follow. He got all this criteria clear. Now it's a unilateral decision of the bank, and we work him like Blongen. So what will happen to those applicants that their application are being refused? Where will they go for banking? And when will they be allowed to open an account again? So this is basically a question where me like raising. It's a big problem in the city, not just for corporates, SME, and ordinary people. Ayo, you may get out some steel man, steel Maria. You may involve fraud or, corrupt practice or kind of thing. And that's all question for me, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Governor for NCDC for his very, very important question. I think in previous parliamentary sessions, we've made it very clear that the number one problem facing the government today has been those issues, that issue that he mentioned, plus one or two others. Mr. Speaker, the problem that we're having with establishing bank accounts, the problems that we're having with even cashing a simple check, has really become a major problem to the point where it's inhibited government business and private sector business. And if we look back in the private sector in the last, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, all of this started as a result of introducing the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism Financing Act back in 2015. And this legislation, as I understand it, Mr. Speaker, I wasn't in Parliament then. I was enjoying life on an island. But I was monitoring the situation quite closely. And as I understand it, this legislation arose as a result of the attacks on the Twin Towers in New York City in the U.S., which many of us call 9/11, back in September 2001. And as a result of that, we noticed that worldwide there became the most coordinated effort by governments to stop that happening again by stopping the easy movement of illegal funds to fund terrorism and black market activities. And we weren't any different. And if we didn't enact this legislation, our government effectively would not have access to US dollars, which of course would destroy our economy. And so I think it was a good thing that we introduced this legislation. I think on both sides of the House we support it. But as a result of passing this act, Mr. Speaker, it's had the unintended consequence of some of the things the governor's mentioned, and it's increased the scrutiny on financial transaction, where today it's just frustrating and stopped a lot of business activities. So what have we done about it? And I thank the governor for asking if we could meet with the central bank. Mr. Speaker, in fact, we've had 3 meetings with the central bank already, together with CEOs of the commercial banks, and with the previous governor of the central bank, we had asked him to sit down with us, sit down with the commercial banks, review all existing laws, and come up with a report that identifies where these problems are and provide some solutions. To date, that report has not been presented to my office. But the good news is that this Parliament has now appointed a new governor. And so far, we've found him to be receptive, Mr. Speaker, and during my first meeting with him, I did convey to him that the #1 priority for him as a new governor is to furnish that report. So I've decided to have regular meetings now with the central bank, as was the case in the past, and on Monday this week we'll be meeting with him, and Governor, I'll be very pleased to raise that again with him and urge him to provide us that report, so that we can make it easier for our people not only to start bank accounts but to transact financially. In relation to your second questions, what plans do we have for those that are not allowed to open an account? At present, unfortunately, we don't have a detailed plan to assist those people, and as a result, they end up going to loan sharks, paying very high interest rates. But it's something that clearly we need to address. Thank you for your question.
The honourable member for Esala.
Yeah, my question goes to the Prime Minister. It relates to the governance space in our country. The first question is, would you please confirm if you're going to convene the Ombudsman Appointment Committee to deal with serious allegations of misconduct that have been raised formally against the current Chief Ombudsman Commission? That's the first question, and the reason I ask this is because I asked the same question 2 sessions ago, and I was given an undertaking that I would get an explanation in a letter form, and that didn't come. And as the Prime Minister would fully appreciate, in law, only the Ombudsman Appointment Committee can refer the Chief Ombudsman in cases which involves these allegations of misconduct. Also, from the records, it is clear that the State Solicitor and the Chief Justice have already taken the position that the Ombudsman Appointment Committee should take action. So I take the opportunity one more time to ask this question. It also explains, Mr. Speaker, why I chose on behalf of my Esala people yesterday not to support an amendment that was introduced to improve on certain aspects of the Ombudsman Commission's functions, but it adds a 2-term tenure on a leader of this very important institution of governance. And if we pass that, it would indirectly be endorsing a situation that should have been dealt with and should be dealt with by the Ombudsman Appointment Committee. I say this also, Mr. Speaker, to alert the Honourable House and our people to the fact that the Ombudsman Commission...
We have a point of order. Honourable Member. Honourable Prime Minister, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I think standing orders prevent leaders from questioning a government business that is on foot in the form of questions that comes through. And secondly, the point of order is a little bit misconceived, that law is aimed to entrench someone in office. This is a law that was promulgated a long time before we took office, has come through many stages. It is to give sunset to someone who is in office, so it's a little bit mischievous and misconceived for him to allude that law is brought in place to entrench someone who is in office. So I just ask the Mr. Speaker for you to make a ruling, for the leader to rephrase his question, remove that aspect of his line of questioning, please.
Point of order is in order. Honourable Member Blair Sala, you ask him question, Blair finish. Now you will work with statement, now you will elaborate more, so you rephrase. You got another question in Stabiet?
Thank you, and I thank the Honourable Prime Minister for that point of order. And it just goes to show the importance of the question I'm raising, that when the Ombudsman Commission seeks the support of this Honourable House for an amendment, it should also respect this Honourable House. Because when we passed the ICAC bill, it was the Ombudsman Commission that went to the Supreme Court.
You may get another point of order. Honourable Minister,
can we ask the Honourable Member to ask the question instead of making a statement?
Honourable Minister, Member, can you rephrase your statements into a question? You ask him question.
Yes. So, Mr. Prime Minister, the first question is, are you going to convene the Ombudsman Appointment Committee to deal with serious issues of misconduct that were received prior to his appointment and after the appointment? And secondly, would you give this matter some urgency in the light of the fact that the Parliament is now in receipt of the amendments that we are dealing with? On the one hand, we want to support our country in going forward, but we also want to make sure that these institutions are in good hands. Can the Prime Minister also admit or deny that the same person or leader lobbied against the ICAC in the passage of the ICAC bill and is now...
You may get another point of order again. What's your point of order?
The Honourable Member for Esala has asked a question already. Now he's going into grievance type debate and trying to make a statement here. The appointment of
it's out of order.
Public office holders and others, when the process is there, if there's allegations or not, that the Parliament cannot determine that, the outcome of that. Let due course take its course. So your question is already asked. Thank you.
Honourable Member Blair Sala, you ask him question, Blue Unite.
Yes.
You will work him statement, Gani Gona, alleged him all one law, individuals and display. You cut him out. Now you ask him question, Blue Australia Prime Minister, and my answer.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to my third question, and that was to do with the important bill that we passed in relation to ICAC. Would the Prime Minister acknowledge or deny that the Ombudsman Commission did take steps to oppose the ICAC bill, and whether they are now in the Supreme Court challenging the validity of the ICAC bill? So that's in relation to the...
You may get another point of order again.
This is, Mr. Speaker, this is a constitutional office. They have a right to mount challenges in the interest of the majority of the people who can't talk.
We cannot question the very institution that we set up to do this very purpose task that we are now questioning the Ombudsman Commission. They can challenge any law. That is what they were set up for, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister, point of order, you, in order, but then by the Prime Minister, by answering all this question and so on. Milarem, Honourable Member, you ask him all question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. That question has been asked, and the explanation is that the Ombudsman Commission, within its constitutional duties, does not involve the lobbying and politicking the way they did with the ICAC bill. Now, in relation to my second lot of questions in relation to ICAC, I commend the government for the progress made so far. The only question I raise is whether the regulation has been passed. Oh my goodness. Whether we have a regulation.
Point of order, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my point of order is this. You cannot ask 3 or 4 questions on different subject matters. He asked for the Chief Ombudsman Commission, the Disciplinary Appointment Committee. Then he went to ICAC. These are 2 distinct matters. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's out of order for him to continue on and let him answer the questions, ask the questions, and Prime Minister can answer it.
Honourable Member, ask him now.
Thank you. As I said, these questions relate to governance in our country. In relation to ICAC, I commend the government for the progress made so far, and I also acknowledge the support of the European Union. The only question I have is whether the regulations for the ICAC bill has been endorsed already so that we can see an active, fully participate in ICAC Commission next year or this year. And finally, the Prime Minister, you have pronounced publicly a commitment to pass the unexplained world bill. I just want to ask where that bill is at the moment and whether we should expect it in this session of Parliament or in the life of this Parliament. Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the Member for Esala for asking a series of important questions, and we do apologize from this side if we interjections or point of orders made you your line of thought disturbed, but I saw you pretty focused, so we appreciate your question. These are good questions we all ask to ensure that some of these important functions that we must do or we should do gets attended to. Let me say on the complaints that purported complaints, I have not officially received something on my desk to progress through the Ombudsman Appointments Committee level in as far as the discipline matter is concerned. And like I made reference to a question that was raised yesterday or the day before yesterday's sitting, if there are some issues that need to be raised on any, whether it's a ministerial office or a constitutional office, the proper process for raising them up is there. Raise them up. If there's a need for us to convene an Ombudsman Appointments Committee to deal with the disciplinary matter, disciplinary case, then certainly we are not in the business of delaying or stopping what should be legitimate complaint and raised to address this sort of issue. So I'll get my office to see if there was a request made to us, but I have come to note in our country lately that many times people, disgruntled employees, previous employees or sacked employees, they run to, in first instance, they run to Facebook to discredit people who have put in long time in working up their way through the due process. For instance, the current Chief Ombudsman, his appointment was not picked by just one person or myself as Prime Minister or us on the government side. In constitutional office like this, there are a body of 4 constitutional office holders who sit, 4 or 5 who go through such appointments. In the case of Ombudsman appointment process, the Prime Minister the Chief Justice, the Leader of Opposition, the Public Service Commission, all sit in to make inquiries to get a fit and proper person appointed. The current incumbent got appointed through the due process, but if there's a legitimate complaint on his performance or whatsoever, then at this point in time, I am not privy to a proper filed, mounted complaint that warrants an Ombudsman Appointments Committee to be set. I'll get my office to look through the files we have, and if there's a complaint mounted and requires an Ombudsman Appointment Committee to meet, then at the very earliest, that meeting will take place, and for the public to be informed accordingly, and the member his question to be answered also accordingly. And if there was no reply to your earlier question, I do sincerely apologize for this. Secondly, he asked his 1, 2, and 3 questions sort of related to the Ombudsman Appointment Committee and the disciplinary matter on no sense of urgency was his third point. I just alluded to you, I have not seen or cited yet properly lodged complaint on such matters through my files. On the ICAC matter, whether there was an issue raised by the Ombudsman Commission, may I inform this House that from what I was informed or copied in, they mounted application in the Supreme Court to question functional overlaps. It was in the belief that there are some functions of Ombudsman Commission that the current ICAC absorbed or is tasked by the ICAC Act we passed, and so they've filed a review to look into this one. I've instructed the Justice Department and ICAC itself and Ombudsman and the Prime Minister's Department to sit instead of going to court. Let's see whether those can be addressed administratively and be correct in law. I've passed word to Ombudsman. We do not intend to dilute ICAC. We need ICAC to set up and function and move. They should be twin organizations working to ensure the integrity of our economy, of our country, is okay and managed and balanced between these two offices. So we've given our advice that they need to sit down and work together. But of course, Ombudsman is a constitutional office. They also have their own right by mandate to also seek and address in law to see whether what we did was proper or improper. On the regulation of ICAC, we're working to ensure ICAC gets operational. You would have noted the advertisement on the commissioners to come in, and the regulation aspect of it is a work in progress. I'll get my office to find out where we are on this one and report back, but certainly we've had the ICAC Appointments Committee meeting, and we are going through all this process. Chief Justice, myself, Opposition Leader, the Public Service Commission, we were also in that meeting in as far as work for ICAC is concerned. On the unexplained wealth bill, our Department of Justice and Attorney General has been tasked to work on this one. We'll get back to Parliament as Parliament sits in the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member of Makam, the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me a chance to ask him question. Ask him Lomigolo, Minister of National Planning. Minister of National Planning, Bami line him question Lomi one time, one black question, supplementary question. Member of Sumkar bin ask him lo Minister of Works. Long connect PNG program money. Honorable Minister, Makam lo 2020 bin included lo wambla rot lo mi lo leron wantuat lo connect PNG na mixi map money lo 2020 la roti a mi plus sili map rot yopinis ol manama mastretia wala mamas lo government lo help mi pla lo make him sampla district road di kama bosem igat kolta gonsite na mi like to thank you lo government lo marape basil government lo kama bindis la program mo help mi pla 2021 this la road stablo budget na 2021 ya minok sim this money osana minister me ask him you 2021 budget go finish na you by give me this money or no got me ask him you because aste time you me sit down lo parliament stop Ol sambla leader blo disla house ya. All go lo electorate blo mina bagarabi mi wantem pangu party government. Lo ino look sawe lo line blo mi lo makam. Na ino give him money. Na money mixi mi go na work kama bia. Nothing because all narabla money you blow go only mistabia. Now all go bagarabi mina pangu stop. You mistap bisi lo parliament stop na. Sambla leader go campaign stop lo electorate stop. Leader of the opposition now start lo makam.
Honorable member, you will go grievance debate now, so you ask your question.
Honorable Speaker, me express him this plan lo, minister lo, one time by you giving me this plan money, because all leader go talk sem 2 weeks time all by go give him some commitment money oligato. Me like you give me some money lo me lo 2 weeks time na me pla 2 go give him. So, Honorable Minister, enough you make him, in 2 weeks time you give me this money, na mi karim golo makam. Thank you, lo, arem lo you Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I like to thank you, lo, Deputy Speaker, na member of the makam, lo raise him, I think, 2 question where, I'm raising limit of floor. In some ways, in the 2 week, I really believe where. Tok lo side lo leader go pass lo tok lo walk we make him in so electorate blame na as to some sense if government give him assistance or not. Mr. Speaker, one funding lo connect PNG mipla government is starting the program connect PNG to connect those parts of Papua New Guinea who said no got access the main roads either through roads or ports or jetties through our coastal areas through power arpla walk na district blame to included in Salosla connect PNG program, which is chaired by my department and works and other departments. He work bung wantem law, carry out this policy block connect PNG. Me confirm was yes 2020 budget. Later on want to what road even stop. Na me dispense him this money go long district na. Me like to thank you to lo member lo make him good work no road ceiling he come up. Na me plug some report finish lo national planning. Me same time we continue the funding instead long last year. And I believe at least half of this money go na half was not sent. And the problem, Mr. Speaker, through you to this honorable house was, I think, member belong some characterism issue belong road funding where belong Sumka road, go long some play go long some play go long province that these issues where you may try law administering budget do me pass him those laws. Mr. Speaker, I want to put a note that I think last year we had the opportunity where some questions were asked on the budget da. Me been clarifying most last year, plenty road you may keep him long provincial government budget. Na national government with all good intention he put him road, but sometimes the working relationship between governors and members you know stop. So sometimes road blow district member you go stop long provincial government, governor you only miss la money. Sometimes you go governor you good plan to dispense him na keep him projects. So sometimes that working relationship he affect him the way we are dispensing funds. Instead long time long completing some policy where government is starting. So I will check as to the half funding where MIPLA captured in budget for last year. Then we know that Mr. Speaker, time last year budget and pass and lapse now you may come to 2022 budget. So for this year I will assure the honourable member through you Mr. Speaker that MIPLA Tribe Law complete him this connect PNG funding through all the districts, which now we establish him that all the district road but goes to the district governments. Now all the provincial roads will go to the provincial governments. So Noga cross pipe straight from Waigani we will administer that level of funding. Instead let go to province now we create him issues want them all governors, the members. Now as per the budget you may pass him, provincial government provincial roads will go to provincial governments and district roads will now go straight to the district governments. So to the DDAs, Mr. Speaker. So later on one toward road and very important road now. I can assure the Deputy Speaker through you and the people of Makam and the people of Wantuat that we will ensure that this funding for this year by me retire him and also whatever is outstanding last year I will check with my department, Treasury and the Finance and ensure that we dispense those outstanding monies that we captured in budget as well if there's some extra allocation for this year as well. Mr. Speaker, last point before me sit down, I want to take the question as an opportunity to express the time. I sense that, we have election time coming up and, Osememe talk, Belevi blame all members, you go talk. Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity of seeing this video. Now, me like just put on the league Belevi before me sit down. Time people, national leaders, you must stop, Parliament takes precedent, Mr. Speaker. We're looking for numbers. The opposition leaders should be in the seat right now, administering, discussing about issues and debates and all this. Election time will come. Let's respect government process now. Time of Parliament, you may come sit on the Parliament. Number one. Number two, Mr. Speaker. Now, an anniversary belong, late, Grand Chief Somare will come up tomorrow, Saturday. And when some national leaders, you may comment on them, Pangui died. Pangui is not Honorable James Marape, Mr. Speaker. Pangui is an institution of government created by our late grandfather. So when we make comments to that this Laman died, party died, these are very, sensitive comments for us national leaders to make on the ground. So time me around, you must careful when we talk because we break or divide our own people, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, me really mad on last comment by you and you all the grievance debate. You answer a question, finish. Honorable Member Blogazel, Kokopo, sorry, Aswa. What a point of what have you?
Speaker, me asking supplementary question.
You know been sing out supplementary me no harem so me
maybe me
you can receive him question please but me look sabelo you behind.
Thank you.
But me larem Member Kokopo ask him longan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question from me, Igolo, Finance Minister, na Treasurer can take note. Mr. Speaker, I'm goal number 3 moon now. I must play behind by number 3 moon come up. Na we plus sample all districts, even all provinces, all accounts we plan no operate yet. We play got heavy one time all sumatin, especially all sample districts, all supporting all tertiary institutions, subsidizing all school fees all. Question Blomigolo, Finance Minister, because all finance manager, provincial managers, all work on it loan. Question Blomiosem. We plus apply approving all provincial budgets finish, where all district budgets consolidated in good side law programs law province. And I understand that IFMS, all provinces, not yet, but here in law headquarters, stop. So question Blomiosem, even though you may approve in budget, they will have to add all figures go inside law IFMS. But question Blomilo, Minister Osem, it will take some time ball inputting all figures. And I know people all are in stop all place, and we need our accounts to be open. You got COVID fund where you may be opening account last year. Question Blomiosem is the inputting of figures in Port Moresby will take some time for it to be completed. So, question Osem, through you, Mr. Speaker, can we start operating our accounts? Because IFMS, for sure, you may not abusing at all provinces, that district Blomi, and question Blomi Osem, so that Minister can give him some talk or right Blomi Plaugata, because some time when they give instructions from Port Moresby, provincial finance manager by got narapla talk, district finance manager by got narapla talk. So be like by Minister, evoke him clear through you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Me like talk. Thank you, good member, Kokopo, good question, Mr. Speaker. To answer the question straight, there's a letter already sent out by the Treasurer, supported by a circular by the Department of Finance Secretary, that all accounts should now be open and should be operating for as long as the districts have their district budget resolutions and the expenditures according to procurement laws and processes. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if any one of our finance managers out in the districts are not
adhering to those instructions and circulars released by the Department of Finance, and of course the letter by the good Minister for Treasury for such transactions and for the accounts to open, then I'd be interested to know, so those officers can be reprimanded forthwith. Mr. Speaker, on the other issue on IFMS, yes, we have restored it. It will take some time to have it rolled out to our provinces and to our districts, and therefore we will have to continue to use the COVID trust account as approved by our finance instructions, I believe, issued earlier by my department. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Honorable Member Long Abao.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to ask a question to the Honorable Prime Minister, and if the Minister for Education could also take note. The issue that was raised with regards to the project fees, I'd like to expand on it and request the Prime Minister if he could look at some options that I would suggest. Prime Minister, when he became the Prime Minister just under 2 years ago, we shifted away from TFF, and now, because of the COVID issue, the government made a very good decision to come back to the TFF, which all of us applaud. However, in the true meaning of TFF, the project fees are coming in, charged by the various boards, etc. And we heard yesterday that some parents are having difficulties, and so they are turning up to members of parliament to help them. And so in the true sense, my humble opinion is, Mr. Speaker, that the TFF, including the project fee charged by the individual schools, therefore is not in the true spirit of the government policy of TFF, but halving papa na mama lo sanim pikinini go to school. I bring this issue up particularly thinking of one child that came to my office last week, and that child has been sent away because the outstanding project fee for last year have not been paid. And so the child is still waiting. So he's waiting for my response whether I will help. It amounts to about 3,000 kids. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, there are many children and the parents like that. And so I have had the experience of last year's outstanding project fees, and the child is not allowed to register in the school, while the Minister for Education and the Good Secretary for Education are saying no child should be sent home if they have not yet paid the project fee. And we in the Abao district have made a resolution to confirm the Minister for Education's instruction that any school in Abao that sends a child away, that those board chairmen of the school and the headmasters will be reprimanded because of that instruction. My simple question, Mr. Speaker, to the Honorable Prime Minister is, wouldn't it be right for us to scrape by policy the project fee in the country? Because TFF is there. In my district, we've assessed the slip cost in the entire Abao district, and the slip cost submitted by individual schools is 200,000. The DDA has agreed to pay the 200,000 entirely and individually to the slip cost. It amounts to 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 per school in Abao. And so DSIP is there. We've got the education component. And usually the process is the project fee at the school level, accountability Emino is up. But we do have accountability at the DSIP level. We report and submit our final report to the Minister for Finance, etc. And the Ombudsman also has a copy. And so my simple question, Prime Minister, would your government consider my humble request on behalf of, I think, many, and particularly this child that is waiting, that the project fees be scrapped in this country? that the DSIP component really should be part of that, because all the presidents that represent the LLGs are in the DDA. And so the LLG issues are presented as resolutions, like what we did in Abao. And so I really think that there should be a policy intervention.
Honourable member, have you asked a question?
Thank you. That's a question. Can the Prime Minister make an intervention in policy to scrap project fees and allow DSIPs to communicate with the LLG presidents who are in the DDA to help the SLIP programs that the Minister said that the SLIP is the project fees fund the SLIP program? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. May like, excuse me, appreciate him question law. Member Blabao, in terms of looking at a policy intervention, if we could just get this so-called label project fee out of the policy or law that requires for parents and our schools and school boards to make those calls at the level. At the moment, project fees are kept at 20% of what is, up to 20% of what is the school fee for the academic year. And so that suggestion to have a look at policy to abolish the requirement for project fee is something we certainly can look into. However, in state schools, we could make those interventions, no problem. The church-run schools has a little bit of policy mismatch where they come under a special agreement and arrangements to run those schools. They are really the main ones who the project fee is supposed to have benefited them in some way to complement or supplement rather a gap that they felt in as far as the cost that was really actually needed to run the school per child that is enrolled in those schools. So we will look into this aspect about trying to see whether we could pull back the definition or requirement of our project fee in schools. That's a very good suggestion. But let me, taking this question as an opportunity to make a statement to all our provincial education advisors right across our country. About 21 provinces, as well as Bougainville. The provincial education advisors, you sit at the level in the hierarchy where you have a direct oversight with what is happening in schools right throughout our country. So if the provincial education advisors could be sensitive to the issue on no child should be turned away from the school at this point in time, the list they all should know is members of parliament using DSIP, governors using provincial government fundings, and of course national government through the school fee assistance program we're running, come straight to school to assist schools. So school boards, the school chairmen, the headmasters in our respective schools should wear the human hat on and not to turn the child away from the schools that the school that child is fronting up to be enrolled in. So I just want to ask our education advisors in all our provinces and our special region of Bougainville to be on the lookout to ensure you implement government policy at this point in time. We don't want to send a child out of our classrooms. And if the member for Abao could take a note on the 3,000 kina that seems outstanding. Project fee shouldn't, in my view, shouldn't be that high. If the 3,000 kina is outstanding for 1 year, something's terribly wrong somewhere. Project fee for primary schools should be below 200, 300. Project fee for high schools, in my view, should be below 700, 800, 500 the least. So that's the range of project fees. But if someone is saying they got 3,000 kina project fee outstanding, then something is terribly wrong somewhere in the channel of ensuring that policy instructions are being implemented right throughout. And I take this time to advise all provincial advisors, please do your job. You don't expect the Prime Minister to come down or the Minister to come down in all instances. You are paid as provincial education advisors to ensure the standards, but operations also are being effectively worked on in our school systems right throughout our country. But certainly the idea of taking away project fee by definition through policy level, a very good suggestion we could have a look at. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member Lupomia.
Mr. Speaker, My question is to the Minister for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology. Mr. Speaker, we know that this week we have our students at tertiary institutions are now registered, and the operations will be beginning by next week. They should be resuming the academic year for this year. While many of our institutions are doing this, I heard from universities at Woodall and Oro, I heard that their accounts have been freezed and they are not able to access their accounts, school accounts. The question is the minister aware of this? And what is the department doing about this? If the minister can give an assurance to these two schools so that they can resume operations next week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Higher Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Pomio for asking this very important question that does affect our institution, UNRE of Woodall University. Firstly, we have a case where the governing council of the university, their term has expired. So what I've done is we've put a new governing council in place. They've been there for close to over a year. Their terms have expired. So what the governing council and the VC have done is that they've got a restraining order. And they got a restraining order, so they're able to have the access to the account. As I'm speaking, we're going through the court case. We have a court case today at Wagani Courthouse, National Court. So that problem with the accounts, that's been rectified. What we did is the new Chancellor and the Governing Council, we've written to the banks to freeze the account because there were so many checks which were raised because they knew that there was a gadget notice out and they were out. So what they've done is they're just buying time so that they can have access to those checks that they've just written up. So we've written, the Governing Council and the Chancellor have written to the banks to freeze those accounts until the new management and the new acting Vice Chancellor can go in. But as of now, they've gone and taken the restraining order for the new council from having access to the university. So our lawyers are on it, and we should be able to get over it. It's a similar kind of situation, the cases that we've had with NARI and the University of Goroga. That's what we've done. So what I've done is using my powers as the minister responsible for higher education, I've appointed a new governing council. But thank you very much for asking that very important question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, some question time for 5 minutes and we come. Grievance debate. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. My grievance debate today is about water PNG and the issues that my electorate and the city is facing when it comes to the management of water supply to our people of this city. Now, when Water PNG was established, it was there to establish a professional service that is efficient so that our people of Port Moresby, especially, and Moresby South get constant water supply. Well, since the establishment of Water PNG, it's been an absolute disaster. Total incompetence and mismanagement of the whole water system. My people of Moresby South are suffering every single day. Before Water PNG was set up, Eroranu was running the water system here in this city. and doing a fantastic job. I never had a problem for the last, while Edirano was in charge. We could go to them, talk to them, reason with them, and allow the water to flow into our communities of Moresby South. Now, the water is dry, the taps are dry, the pipes are dry. And the situation is that it's in a real diabolical state. For me, as a member, one of the biggest complaints in my electorate is the supply of water to our people. Now, for the last 10 years, with the support of Governor Paus-Pakop, I've been putting in the water infrastructure, piping, taps, into all the settlements and villages of Moresby South, spending millions of kina, of DSIP government money into these communities so they can have a water supply, so they can have fresh water which they need. But those pipes are dry. There's no water going into that infrastructure that we are paying for. Not PNG water, Water PNG, not Edirano. This came from us paying for this infrastructure, which is basically a free handout to Water PNG, and we're still not getting the water coming through the pipes for the benefit of our people. So as I see it, it's really become a big, big problem where Water PNG is not doing their job. And we have to totally relook at the management and the ability of providing water to our people in this city. As I said, Edirano, not a problem. That management was sacked and a new management was put in. And that management, I can say without fear or favour, is the cause of the problem we are having now. You ask anybody in my electorate, what's your major problem? They'll say, water. And then the blame comes back to me as a member, to the governor, and to the other members here as well, from North East and West. It's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. And the whole management really needs to be overhauled. Water is a right for our people to have. We should not be begging for water. People are more than happy to pay for water if it's provided. But there's no water coming into our communities or our villages, especially our Motokoi Tabuans, the traditional customary landowners of our city. They're the ones that are suffering the most. One, yes, because of legal connections, illegal connections, and two, because the water system is not being carefully operated for the benefit of our people to have sustainable water so they can live in a healthy environment. So what do? My opinion is that we need to go back to where Edirano was running the water, or give it back to NCDC. Give it back to NCDC to run, manage and operate the water for the benefit of our people. Because at the moment, it is not working. And all our people are suffering, and we're having constant problems every single day. So as the city grows, where is the plan for the water to be expanded out to our other communities and to ensure that they have water in our areas? Yes, Governor and I and the other open members can spend millions of kina supplying water into these communities. We pay Edirano or at PNG, Water PNG, we pay them. We're not engaging the contractors. They give us a quotation for supplying water into these areas, and then we pay them to do the job. But they don't do the job, there's no water supply, and we're left with this big problem with the people of our city and our electorate. So we really need to have a good look at this problem. It needs to be rectified immediately. I've gone to the ministerial level, at my level, talking to our ministers. I've gone to the management level, talking to the management. But with all due respect, without fear or favour, we're going nowhere. There's no positive reply, productive reply, professional reply. It says yes, 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 yes. No action. So the creation of Water PNG might have been a good idea, but it's producing nothing. It shows that the previous system was working. So let's give Water PNG back to NCDC, or put it back to Edirano, put a professional management by credibility in there that know what they're doing, and from there get the water flowing in the pipes for our people of Port Moresby. Stop making excuses and make it happen for our people. I get tired every single day trying to solve this problem, and it comes to absolutely nothing. The incompetence is at the highest level you could believe. So that's something that we really need to look at when it comes to producing water for our people and professionally managing it. Our city is ever growing, and this, if we can't manage this situation now, how are we going to manage in 10 and 20 years' time? So something really needs to be seriously done. I am all for making things happen, but when I hit brick walls all the time, we have to knock them down and come up with some credible solutions to supply the necessity of life of water to our people without fear or favour to anybody. No matter who you are, whether you live in a settlement or you live in a village or an urban centre or the city, you all deserve to have water, no matter who you are. So, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, this is a grievance that I've had, and I'm sure the other open members share the same issue. Water PNG must be abolished and put a better system in place for the benefit of our people in our capital city. Thank you so much.
The Honourable Member for Kiribina Gudina.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Lo give one more opportunity go of people of Kiribina Gudina to be heard at this honourable house. Mr. Deputy Speaker, me like talk lik lo all powers lo autonomy na decentralization of powers go down lo all provinces na districts. Now morning you sit down stop. A member of Kokopo, I'm raising one question. Lo or line lo East New Britain, and more so from the people of Kokopo who are still waiting for the accounts to be cleared so that they can operate, so that they can meet the requirements of projects now or other requirements below district law. Fortunately, Miplalo province, district Miplalo accounts have been cleared, and we've been operating for the last 4 weeks without much issue. Na milak tok thank you lo finance department, na treasury too, lo or workman blow, no workmary blow, lo to make certain that our districts and our provinces are operating without much delay. Me like to talk lo autonomy. I wouldn't get much to touch Bougainville because I have very little or limited expertise when it comes to Bougainville. And my fellow member and the governor of Bougainville, the autonomous region of Bougainville, I know will be speaking on maybe the issue later today. In by that word, decentralization. Because plenty lo mipla lo districts, na plenty lo mipla lo all provinces. Mipla believe osem time you talk lo decentralization. We
have moved certain powers or some powers down to the provinces so that the provinces are empowered to take those responsibilities away from the national level. Now, time you talk law departments, lands department, all other departments. Mipla law districts or provinces, mipla time law function with some of those departmental powers. That's all. Plenty time mipla must run back, come back law waigani every time. Now, the delay because of bureaucratic red tape, law waigani, has caused a lot of delays in the provinces. Some time ago, on this floor, I raised a question to the Minister for Lands. Now, Minister for Lands and talk will get back to you and sort out those issues in your provinces or in your districts. Now, Mipla got very qualified lands officers, law district. Very qualified lands officers in the province. Now, time issues of this nature are raised to the provincial lands officers or so. Or can Mipla come back to national government can? So my question here, or my grievance here today is, what kind of power you mean Salim go down all provinces? Is it really decentralization in these powers down to our people, or it's partial? Now, mi sanap mi like tok law, economy dependence on the national government as well. Plenty time you mean tok and provinces must raise their own revenue. That's what powers you mean no give more. You mean holding power come back. Now tok that's all you mean salim go down low people. Now, as I stand here and me tok law this all topic, Mr. Deputy Governor, I am very, very concerned with what the member for Kokopo has raised this morning. We are now in February, and next week will be in March. Now, these are powers now, wide powers now. I don't want to dwell into all these wide powers that we have that Salim come down, lo yumi, na yumi walk, lo come back, lo national government can. Financial powers, Salim go down, now you must come back, lo clear him accounts, blame me. You may get auditors by go down and check him all accounts. Now, Mipla law districts, Mipla struggle to operate because Mipla come back again, law national government law clear him this. So my question, na grievance blomitete, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that what kind of level of this diverging of certain powers, what kind of level, law departments, maybe this government can make it clear so that MIPLA or open members, now governors can survey clearly what kind of powers law departments have been divulged to the provinces or to the districts. Mr. Speaker, I am number one. Number two, also, I keep on referring to the member for Kokopo because MIPLA law provinces time law this house, you may get level law district how much by all district treasurers or managers can approve or raise the checks down there. Now behind time or raising checks, law this house yet you may pass him more bills finish. Or some level law all districts can come up law this level. Now province can come up law this level. That's all the practice is still that MIPLA raising checks law districts, MIPLA must come back law province, now province must approve him. Or PA must sign. Now, I still have my question here. Also, all DAs, now this finance managers, this level blow must be made clearly, explicitly clear because time we plakarim check go down low bank talk nogat level blow district administrator blow you na treasurer disla. Also, na check by must go back. Na you raise him go provincial administrator by side. Me raise him go law provincial administrator or talk you approve him level. So you go back na cut him go down also.
Osemna, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that time me stand up, me like, you me clear him where we are. So that people all provinces and districts want to move. Lo district like move. So every time people raise him check go down lo bank too. Got way blame lo talk. No. This la check here. People not clear him because people go over lo level blue. This morning we heard the governor for NCD speak about the banks. The banks have become very stringent in clearing of checks. I've been affected personally, and I spoke to the governor once on the phone. I said, Governor, if you know somebody from BSP, talk to them on my behalf. I'm talk on them bunch law brick wall and reading me. I said, we cannot do much. It's affected me personally. Now, suppose I'm affecting me personally, I know it's affected the people in the district as well. The small SMEs, it's affected them. So the treasurer this morning has given us a very good answer. But it would be good that the treasurer should go one step further. Now go on and look inside law, BSP bank. Now talking BSP, time you like pass him account blow man, no can pass him tassel, give an explanation. You're a service provider. No can see not him customer come inside tassel and put him paper golem na talk, you sign, bamla pass him bank account blow you, salim bank check blow you come. You need to explain to the customer why you're doing that. And it's not only affected individuals, it's affecting also districts and provinces time checks or banks. I think, Mr. Speaker, time blew me come also 1 minute by me finish. On behalf of my people of Kirunaguna Melek talk, thank you. Lord Prime Minister, whilst I still have that 1 minute. Lord talk, thank you, Lord Prime Minister and Cabinet blame. Lo appoint him one man, lo district blomi, lo take him as head of MSG. Leonard Loma. Prime Minister, me like talk thank you lo you, me like talk thank you lo government blow you, me like talk thank you lo Prime Minister blow Fiji, Honorable Baini Marama. Lo, in your wisdom, you have appointed by merit, a person from my district, to be the head of the MSG. I know you spoke to me, Prime Minister, about an year ago, and today is the first anniversary blow late Say Michael Somare. And I remember you talking to me.
Honourable Member, your time has
Speaker, can you just give me 1 minute to thank the Prime Minister, please? And a year ago, Prime Minister, you spoke to me.
Honourable Member, you can see other members are already standing. I will not allow you to go beyond.
Prime Minister, Nagaman blow you, la appoint him a man.
Honourable Member, resume your seat.
To be the head of the MSG.
Resume your seat. The honourable members, you resume your seat. I'll make a statement here. Honourable members, while we are on the grievance debate, let me bring to the attention of you, honourable members, a grievance from the chair on a grievance debate. Honourable members, we are all voted to this house to represent our districts. We are voted to sit in this house and be the voice and faces of our district. When it comes to session, I want you to make it as your business to remain in the seats and represent your people and your district. I've seen members walking out of the chamber during session times, which I cannot stop you to go for to refresh yourself. But while the session is still on, I want you to have that respect. Don't take an opportunity for a chair to recognize you. You make a speech and then you leave. Other members are listening to you while you are making your statement. So you also have to sit in the chair and listen to other members making statement also. So I want you to take that note, and I want you to remain in chair, represent your people, full-time in session, and we complete the sessions of the days. Thank you very much. The Honourable Minister for Public Service.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, tomorrow will be the first anniversary of our great-grand chief, the late Sir Michael Thomas Somare. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of all the public servants of this country about 125,000 public servants of Papua New Guinea currently serving. And most importantly, our forefathers and leaders who have actually led Papua New Guinea to where we are now today. Most importantly, the house that we are now sitting inside has been crafted by the hands of our forefathers and the leaders of this country. And I'd like to pay special tribute to the great Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Sumare. And I think at this juncture also, I'd like to also pay special respects to the people of Isipik for continuously voting Sir Michael into Parliament since his election up to where he stopped and decided for himself to take a rest. And I'd like to say that on record in the Commonwealth, no other electorate in the Commonwealth has beaten Isipik and beaten the people of Isipik, who have continuously voted Sir Michael to office, regardless of whether he brought development for Angoram or for Isipik or Sipik for that matter. They have been so faithful and they have been loyal to support and to vote, to continuously vote our forefather, our founding father of this country. I'd like to pay this respect to the people of Isipik as well, and those that have worked with him to support him to give independence to Papua New Guinea. I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank the family who have stood by him, his immediate family of Angoram. I'm speaking like this because I didn't have the opportunity to speak during the funeral service and all that important occasion at the time 1 year ago. But as we remember him today, tomorrow, as is 1 year past, I'd like to make special tribute, and also, most importantly, on behalf of the public servants of this country, the public service that we have today is the result of what he has done with our founding fathers and those leaders that have brought Papua New Guinea to where we are now. We are enjoying what they have worked hard for, what they have toiled out for. They have sacrificed without education. The University of Papua New Guinea just came after so many years after. And there was no University of Papua New Guinea or University of Technology at the time, but they were able to have a dream inside themselves and the willpower and the strength of God to empower them to see that we have a country of our own. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to, first of all, also thank the Prime Minister and this government for according Sir Michael the highest respect, to give him the best funeral and the best respect for the burial, and also most importantly on behalf of the people of Isipik and Sipik, I'd like to thank the leaders and also the government for allowing Sir Michael's body to be brought to Korea Heights and Isipik and Wewak to be rested in his his rightful place where he belongs. So I'd like to commend Prime Minister and the government for having the understanding to be able to release the body and to be able to fund the program, and for the entire population of this country, the young and the old and everyone, the entire population of Papua New Guinea who have showed all the respect for Sir Michael 1 year ago. So on behalf of the people of Isipik, I'd like to thank you all for what you have done for our Grand Chief and our founding father. And I think those that have actually stood, I can only assure you that what you've done is basically what you've done for yourself and for your family and for the future, because what we've done in terms of what you've taught him is going to be a blessing upon your life individually and also from the community and the electorate that you represent. And I'd like to take this time to thank all of us and all of you that have contributed. Sir Michael's funeral is not ordinary, and it's on the record, Prime Minister and the government on the record, and the NCD governor, all those that in NCD and all the people of this country who stood by, regardless of whether they will be able to see the casket, they were not able to see it, the length and breadth of this country. So I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of all the public servants to say thank you to all of you that have contributed, and most importantly, we say thank you to the family of St. Michael, the children, the grandchildren, and Lady Veronica for giving us St. Michael to be able to see him through and for us to have him and back in the province and at the same time in the country. I'd like to commend that, and I'd like to take this opportunity as well, before I sit down, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to call upon all Papua New Guineans to use this first anniversary for St. Michael to look back at our own country and see how we've gone. As we go towards 2025, when we turn 50, we should now relook at the dream and the vision and the desire from our leaders that they left us behind. What was the Papua New Guinea that they were dreaming for? What was the kind of country that they were wanting this generation to go into? And I think for us, right now, one of the issues that I think that has actually convicted me personally is to see our own Papua New Guineans taking ownership of our own country and our own destiny. That is what we need to really look at now as we remember St. Michael tomorrow. We need to look at how we can be able to take ownership of our own country, starting with the Prime Minister's call to take back Papua New Guinea and Governor Jufa's call and this government's call to take back what we've lost along the way. The dream that our forefathers have had for this country, led by St. Michael, we should now look at it back and relook at ourselves and reassess ourselves and see where we have gone wrong. The sad situation we are now in, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is when you go to almost all our rural towns and our urban centers, most of the shops that we have now are not owned by Papua New Guineans. You walk into the shop, it is a sad situation for us because when you go into the shop, you're not going to see a Papua New Guinean owning that shop. We can use this time to look at supporting our businessmen, our local Papua New Guineans to be able to come in. We cannot, of course, chase foreigners away, but we can chase them away by making sure that we support our local Papua New Guineans to build themselves up. They can create competition and attract investment and to support ourselves so that we can take ownership of our country. We can't really chase them out physically, but we can do those kind of things to be able to take ownership of our country. You know, for example, New Guinea Table Beds is producing chicken. Papua New Guineans are raising this chicken in Ley. And yet someone else is putting them in containers and trucking them and shipping them to us, to our wholesales, to our freezers, and we are buying our own produce from someone else selling it to us. Not long they're going to buy billiard nut and sago and fish and taro, and they will sell it back to us again. We should now stop this and relook at how we can best support our own Papua New Guineans so that they themselves will take ownership and do business here so that that US dollar that comes in through our budget support can go back and trickle down to our families at the rural level that we're in. So I'd like to take this opportunity, Deputy Speaker, while we pay tribute to St. Michael and our forefathers who have led us through this time, and as we recollect on what has transpired, what we've done over so many parliaments ago, and we're going into the 11th parliament, can we now look at ourselves and see and try to find out what the dream that our forefathers have had. And I think the biggest dream that our Prime Minister has now pronounced, and for us to go together with the slogan that Governor Jufa has put forward for us to take back Papua New Guinea and to make sure that we take ownership of this country for our children, our grandchildren to come. Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and may God bless the family of St. Michael and every one of us and this country as we go forward and prepare ourselves to go back to the people and the people to decide whether we come back or someone else comes back. Thank you, and may God bless Papua New Guinea.
The Honourable Member for Abao.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also wish to take the cue from the Minister for Public Service in thanking our Prime Minister and his National Executive Council for making the decision to honor, and it's really befitting for the late Grand Chief. It's recognition, and therefore a public holiday on Monday also been declared. And so I just want to thank the government for making that very, very honorable decision. And further, I mean, the funeral arrangements with the Minister for Public Service referred to, which all of us participated in, definitely were one of the best in this country. So thank you, Prime Minister, under your leadership. We really enjoyed that month, actually. So it's really befitting, and I'm sure the family and all the relatives fully appreciated the honorable way in which the late Grand Chief was laid to rest. During that debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in hindsight, I did make one strong recommendation for Parliament to strongly look at, either naming this chamber under him or the Great Hall under him. So I will leave that as part of this debate. My standing up, I wish to debate over two matters. One is those related to the Ombudsman Commission. And my strong belief has always been that constitutional offices established since independence are very, very important, and they are playing, will continue, and have played a very, very important role, and particularly in my debate on the Office of the Ombudsman Commission, they have done so. And so in my lifetime, I have been referred 2 times. So I respect the importance of the Ombudsman Commission and the honorable vision that was perceived to establish and give its position in the Constitution to establish this important issue, and therefore all of us leaders are basically under that leadership code, and rightly so, because we need to be under surveillance and under scrutiny all the time, that we comply with the laws of the nation, and nobody is above the law. Unfortunately, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am beginning to review my position. And the reason is because of my personal experience with the office. The last referral, which I won the case, was initiated by the former Chief Ombudsman, who is now campaigning against me to stand for the above seat. And so the issue is this office been politicized? Has there been the interference now in this very important constitutional office, rightly established to ensure that leaders perform to the standard that the laws expect? And I'm beginning to say, maybe, Prime Minister, as we are heading into the 11th Parliament in 2025, will be our 50th anniversary, and you are referring to that in many of your public statements. Perhaps the 11th Parliament should now, towards 2025, establish a legal team to relook at the Constitution and to look at all these issues, including the review of the functions, powers, and responsibilities of the Office of the Ombudsman Commission. My view is this. Because the Parliament has passed the OLIPAC, I think this is time to look at it together. And before we fully entrench OLIPAC and structure it very, very well, and I think in view of that and the arguments that the Office of the Ombudsman and the OLIPAC, maybe there are gray areas and maybe there are areas with responsibilities that may not be clear, and therefore they will tread on each other's toes, these two constitutional offices. And so perhaps perhaps we have to really look at and say, what would then be the role of the Ombudsman now that OLIPEC is going to be fully entrenched, and together working with the police fraud squad, etc., strengthening the police as well as OLIPEC, and relook at the office of the Ombudsman Commission. Because I was made aware, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the former Ombudsman, Chief Ombudsman Commissions, when they were invited to international conferences, and I attended one of them, and one of the former Chief Ombudsman did a presentation. And in that PowerPoint presentation, in an international conference, one of those Chief Ombudsmen put up how many leaders and who the leaders that he prosecuted. And therefore the issues of national sovereignty, national security, somebody bad-mouthing leadership out there in international conferences, naming them, I took down the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister, and therefore, painting at the international conferences this issue of leadership in Papua New Guinea. So, having all these issues together, I strongly believe that in the 11th Parliament, I think this Honourable House, whoever the Prime Minister will be, really should look at how the Ombudsman should be restructured and rearranged. And those of us who became leaders, and myself as Secretary for Health, in the mid-90s, and the first lot of our Chief Ombudsman, what we were used to was, we would be called up by the Chief Ombudsman and say, leader, you need to do these things this way. And so they were actually mentoring us. They were actually guiding us. They were actually making sure that we didn't progress too far in making mistakes. And there were less referrals for expensive tribunals to be established. And in my first referral, I was referred for just late submissions of my annual return. The tribunal costed $250,000, I was fined $2,000. And so, all those issues. And so I was arguing that the Chief Ombudsman should have administrative discretionary powers to charge a fee in such instances rather than refer the leader to the PP, to the CJ, establish an expensive tribunal, because the same judges are also got their responsibilities in other important matters. And so I think it's time, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to seriously, this House, to seriously look at, and I believe rather than abolishing the Ombudsman Commission to really look at helping leaders to become good leaders in Papua New Guinea. That's a culture that really should be. And therefore, those of you, and in fact, in this Honourable House, there are going to be many, many younger members of Parliament coming in. I think the oldest here is the governor for New Ireland, and some of us are reaching 70s. But on the main, many of you are below 40. And because of that trend now, younger leaders are going to be on the floor of Parliament. I think the Ombudsman role should be to how to help these younger members of Parliament to become better leaders in this country. That would be the platform I would strongly suggest. And therefore, like the first lot of Chief Ombudsman, they would call the leaders up and say, hold on, stop that. You are going off the track. You need to guide you, etc., etc. So that's my debate on the Ombudsman Commission. The second one, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I've got only 1 minute, and that is for the question to look at through the Minister for Planning to establish a proper planning strategy and structure. And the reason why I say it is when, for example, the National Agricultural Development Program was established and we centralized the fund in Waigani, many paper farmers came up. And therefore, when you concentrate PIP funds in the planning, everybody runs to the planning minister. Governors, open members, those street paper experts on the street, they come and do all those things. So I think there is a need, Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, for a proper planning and management structure for PIPs, helping districts, provinces, governments, and maybe a 2-year program. So projects are well planned, well costed, and they're into the budget. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Honourable
Speaker.
Member. Honourable members, I will recognize the Governor for New Ireland. I saw him stand earlier, and I'll give him time to make statement. Thank you, Honourable members, for standing, but I'll recognize the Honourable Governor for New Ireland.
Mr. Speaker, I want to add some talk on autonomy that was aired by the member for Kirina, and at the same time join with the Minister for Education to honor our great Grand Chief, and thank my fellow governor on the left-hand side of me for honoring him tomorrow. This sort of thing, you know, Papua New Guinea forget it very quickly. The man has done a lot for this country. We pay tribute to him, and it will depend on us to be able to pass on that knowledge to the younger generation. But on the question of autonomy, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe that there was some talk about it yesterday. I couldn't make it. A Spanish-American philosopher once said, "Those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it." In New Ireland, we have learned from history. We have learned that if you want to provide free education for your children, if you want to give all children an equal opportunity to make something of themselves, you cannot wait on the national government. You must do it yourself. That is what we have done in New Ireland. That is why, way back in 2008, we introduced free and subsidized education. 5 years before the national government, we have spent over 65 million up to 2019. That's a lot of money on free and subsidized education from 2008 to 2019, and of course hitting over 75 million now. Indeed, it was New Ireland example that finally forced national government into doing what it should have done 30 years ago. And I'm not blaming anybody, depending on the resources at that time. As my namesake in Africa, Julius Nyerere, said, to govern is to choose. And we have provided our boarding students with rations. 3 meals a day for all boarders. This has never been done before. We have spent over 15 million on rations for our students since 2012. We provide subsidies of $2,500 per year for all New Ireland students attending tertiary institutions. We also provide over 10,000 kina per year to all undergraduates attending any overseas tertiary institution. We have spent over 2 million, and more than that now, sending boys to Australian colleges and girls to Stewart Home in Brisbane. So in New Ireland, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have learned from history. We have learned if you want to provide dignity and respect to the elderly and the disabled, if you want to help those who have spent their lives working hard, taking care of their families and villages, you cannot wait on the state. You must do it yourself. In New Ireland, we introduced a pension for our elderly and our disabled since 2009. We have provided pensions to over 125,000 people and spent nearly 50 million on our elderly and disabled at that time. No other province has done this. No other country in the entire Pacific, and very few countries in the world, provide a payment to all the elderly. In most countries, you must work in a formal sector job covered by superannuation for at least 10 years. In New Ireland, even if you work in the garden all your life, every elder gets a payment. Put together, New Ireland has spent over 1.6 billion in subsidy to the people from revenue generated from Lihir and Simberi, and I must admit we're very lucky. But what I want to tell the Parliament is we're also very sympathetic, and instead of using that money and corrupt the system, we give it back to the people, because I believe that the wealth of this country must rest in the hands of the people. Only when our people are rich will Papua New Guinea be rich. It's time for us to review the way we spend money in this country, not by the national government, but fair distribution of that wealth. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have learned from history. We have learned that if you want to provide a decent roof, kapa, over the heads of all families, if you want to provide them with access to clean water, for drinking water and cooking, then you cannot wait on the national government. You know, not too long. Wait the national government to come and do it for you. You must do it yourself. New Ireland has done that. That is why by the end of this year, 2022, we will have spent over 5 million distributing over 35,000 sheets of copper since 2011. And this is not only about shelter, Mr. Deputy Speaker, no, it is about health. Because when a family has a roof over their heads, they can collect clean water for drinking. That has reduced gastrointestinal disorders among children by nearly 75%. Olino mo pekpekmara, where they used to be before. When they have good roof, they get clean water, and we have reduced diarrhea in those particular sectors that we secured the information from. We have learned from history. That's a message I want to share with yourself and distinguished member of the Parliament. And the primary thing we have learned from history is that we must take care of ourselves. New Ireland must take care of itself. Morobe must take care of itself. Because we cannot trust anyone from outside to take care of us. We said it very clearly in the Malagan Declaration. That's a spiritual document. When I took over the office of the governor, I instituted in New Ireland. We said this, that we will strive to continually invent the future out of our imagination, rather than being victims of the past. So, honorable members, there comes a time in the history of a country when those with vision, those not afraid of hard work, those willing to sweat and toil, those who genuinely love their country and want it to realize its full potential, must now step forward. This is more your world than mine. So I'm suggesting, I'm inviting a lot of you to step forward. There comes a time in the history of a country when we must honestly look at what has been done and admit it has not worked. It has been a failure. We must admit that things have gone wrong, that the ship of state has failed to carry its people to the shore of the promised land. There comes a time in the history of a country when those who have loved their country have the courage to say enough. Enough corruption, enough bad leadership, enough incompetent bureaucracy, enough of the naysayers who spend all their time finding ways to frustrate those who really want to make a difference. There comes a time when those who are committed to making life better for all the people to take control. For if we do not take control, guess what? No one else will. So, honorable members, this is the time.
Honorable
in
Governor,
New Ireland,
Honorable
we
Governor,
know we
your
are
10-minute
at that
time
point.
has lapsed. So.
Did you say my time is up?
Yes, Honorable
Thank you.
Governor. Thank you.
Maybe, Speaker, if I can ask leave of the Parliament, through you, to just have this incorporated in the Hansard, the rest of my undelivered.
Honorable Member, is leave granted?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're
supposed to have 20 minutes.
The Honorable Governor for Bougainville.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, long give him looks again. Long all people of Bougainville. Big looks of Stret. Deputy Speaker, I rise to share my grievances in this honorable House on the absence of legislative powers that enables full functions of the Bougainville national leaders in carrying out their mandated responsibility effectively. Mr. Speaker, as the current regional member for Bougainville, I would like to make a statement which focuses on the absence of powers to enable me to perform my mandated role as a national MP and an elected regional member for Bougainville. Mr. Speaker, today marks 1 year and 2 weeks into office since I was elected as the regional member for Bougainville on the 8th of February, 2021. It has been a great challenge progressing through these 12 months, working alongside our good Prime Minister, Minister for Bougainville Affairs, and as my capacity as the Vice Minister, as well as playing an integral or inter-regional role as the regional member between the ABG and the PNG government, and equally governing the people of Bougainville in collaboration with the President of Bougainville. I have participated equally in the consultation between the ABG and the PNG government, and in the last 3 joint supervisory body meetings held between our 2 leaders, Prime Minister and the President. While performing my responsibilities as a mandated by the people of Bougainville to represent their wishes in the National Parliament and ensure government services continued throughout the region, funded under PSIP, it has come very clear that my primary role as a legislator in the National Parliament has been denied by silencing the institutional powers provided for in the organic law on provincial and local level government. Mr. Speaker,
Since the silencing of the organic law on provincial and local government, after Bougainville established its own autonomous government in 2005 under the organic law on peace building and Bougainville referendum and Part 14 of the National Constitution, it has been 19 years since the creation of the organic law on peace building and Bougainville referendum in 2002. There are within the organic law provisions highlighting the need to establish institutional structures that can function through an inter-regional arrangement and without duplicating roles currently undertaken by existing models of governance that are in parallel to each other. The inter-regional arrangements, which will be focused at providing a consistent political oversight for the ABG and the PNG governments, whilst consultation on the post-referendum continues. This will also allow ensuring consistency in the monitoring and evaluation of the peace agreement, understanding the complexity of governing an autonomous region, conducting reviews, and accurately reporting to the National Parliament so the Parliament and the members of the Parliament are kept informed of developments and issues in implementation of the Bougainville Peace Agreement and the national constitutional laws. At the end of the last JSB, Mr. Speaker, held in December last year in Port Moresby, both ABG and national leaders identified that Section 342 of the National Constitution is clear on involving the National Parliament's role in determining a political settlement for Bougainville. Interestingly, Mr. Speaker, Section 337 of the National Constitution stipulates the national government and Bougainville government shall meet as close as is practicable to the 5th anniversary of establishment of the Bougainville government, and every 5 years thereafter, jointly to review the autonomy arrangements, and B, may agree to additional reviews of the autonomy arrangements at any time, and C, shall present a report of each review under paragraph or to the National Parliament and to the Bougainville Legislature. Section 337 is very clear in that every 5 years after first term of the establishment of the Bougainville government, both governments shall meet jointly to review the autonomy arrangements, and a report of each review is presented to the National Parliament and to the Bougainville Legislature. Mr. Speaker, this, however, has not taken place after the first term of the establishment of the Bougainville government, therefore crippling the role of the National Parliament to stay informed throughout the annual consultations between both governments and the joint supervisory body meetings called for under the peace agreement. Mr. Speaker, I would like to bring to memory in 2016 the National Parliament had established a bi-petition committee on Bougainville affairs. The chairman at that time was the governor for Southern Highlands Province, Honorable William Powie. The committee made 2 visits on the 11th to the 19th of October 2016, and the second visit was on the 18th to the 22nd of March 2017. The chairman then returned, presented a statement in the National Parliament on tabling the report on the visit to the autonomous region of Bougainville. The visit purposely to conduct a review on the progress of Bougainville Peace Agreement in preparation for an upcoming referendum, which eventually took place in autonomous region of Bougainville in 2019. What interests me in this part of the report are similar sentiments I am expressing in my statement today. Mr. Speaker, the last recommendation by the chairman is the reason why I would like to inform Parliament that we, including my technical team, have a model that will bridge the interrelations between ABG and the PNG government, link the overarching political oversight, closing the gap that separates.
Honorable Governor, we have a point of order. The Governor of Eastern Islands. Governor, what's your point of order?
With respect to my brother Governor, Mr. Speaker, I've been listening and I heard these words 3 times, and I feel I need to say that concerning the sovereignty. The way and the angle where the statement is coming, firstly, I heard that he said the government of Papua New Guinea and autonomous region of Bougainville. Secondly, both government by matching the national government. Secondly, even the government of Papua New Guinea, the autonomous region of Bougainville. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor.
Meeting also.
Honorable Governor, if you wish to debate the grievance debate by the honorable member,
Mr. Speaker,
I would not allow you to debate his statement.
We have sub-national level and we have national government.
Honorable Governor, if you wish to raise a concern in regard on that, I can give you a space to debate it in your grievance debate in response to that. I cannot allow you to debate the grievance debate the other member is raising.
Mr. Speaker, this is the highest house that we have. The talk pitching come in a good plan concerning sovereignty of this country. We cannot match ourselves as sub-national with the national government. Me are triple time na me sign up, so thank you.
Honorable Governor for Bougainville, hope you hear from your colleague member. If that is in any statement you wish to refrain from, you can correct it and raise in concern. Thank you. Yes. Correction. Regional member Bougainville. Continue your grievance debate. You only have 3 minutes left.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You may work long grievances na may believe in that point of order log grievances. Thank you. But me take him sentiments expressed long leader Blomi. As I continue, Deputy Speaker, also legislative report expressed by the chairman of the parliamentary committee that went over to Bougainville. This is the pathway me interesting me, and this is the last recommendation by the chairman. Also, me talk is the reason why I would like to inform the parliament. This is the model that will bridge the relationship between the ABG and the PNG government, which gives us clarity as national MPs that you misindan long ya, mipla 4 MPs. Also, me talk me plan long putting one bill soon that redefines organic law on provincial and local level government to suit the autonomous status of Bougainville. However, remodeling under the organic law on peace building and Bougainville referendum, as there are provisions within the organic law that allows for an alignment through an inter-regional governance level or model. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore my humble request that I make known my intentions on the floor of Parliament, that I have identified legal gaps caused within the absence of powers to function legally as given role as the national MPs mandated by the people of Bougainville. It is within the rights of every Bougainvillean to have their views presented in the national parliament, and that is also the right of every parliamentarian to be involved in consultation of the Bougainville peace agreement process and post-referendum. On behalf of the national MPs of Bougainville, I am calling for a support for the national parliament in ensuring that an institutional structure of legislative and executive arms suiting the autonomous inter-regional governments and local level inter-regional government coordination committee be established under the organic law on peace building and Bougainville referendum, therefore giving full powers to carry out our mandated leaders' responsibility for the people of Bougainville in the national parliament. I not only represent myself, Deputy Speaker, I also represent the same sentiments as my other 4 national MPs of Bougainville. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Gulf.
Right to want to raise a few issues, and before I do, I want to join my comments with that of the Minister for Public Service for tomorrow's day. As we all remember, Sir Michael, our founding father, together with Sir Julius and the others who brought independence to our country. Gulf Province, of course, will be celebrating and commemorating this day in our own way back in Miaru village. And I thank all those who played a part, all of us who played a part in the services that were conducted and the house cries that were conducted during last year. Deputy Speaker, we have heard from the various speakers, starting with the member for Kiriwina, that we have a real problem in this country. A real problem with this country in the way that we are changing rules, that we are changing laws, that we are setting up structures haphazardly to govern our nation. And on this eve, as we go forward, I am calling on the PM. Prime Minister, be very serious. Your motto of giving PNG economic independence, take it very seriously. And I recommend you to look at all the structures of governance, government systems. We have local level governments, we have districts, we've empowered them with resources to go forward without any public service, without any way in which the political leadership at the district level can exercise their powers. We have provincial governments under the Constitution and the organic law, where we bring presidents, nominated members, and members, ordinary members, open members. We're supposed to be in a forum in the assemblies 3 or 4 times a year. These are mandated practices under the organic law on provincial and local level governments. Have we been following it? LLGs are the same. We, from a national level, have made a commitment to support ward members with paying them salaries. Village court magistrates, we're doing the same thing. Ours is a decentralized system established at independence under the Constitution, and yet the basic resources, the land, everything belongs to our people, and it must remain that way, but it needs a federal system to ensure that we give meaning, Prime Minister, to what our government is trying to do. And on that basis, on that note, I want us to take us all back in this chamber to the bureaucracy, to the money and the grants that come from the national government, to the LLGs, and to the provinces. Deputy Speaker, this money is only for the function grants, only for existing services, services that were established during colonial times, and services we continue to pay for. From the center, the provinces which have a big revenue base, like New Ireland, is only possible because we've put big resource projects in those provinces. Other provinces where we have not put big resource projects, including agricultural projects, they continue to suffer. So, Prime Minister, I want you to make sure that every province in Papua New Guinea, you have to make them economically independent. You must give a mega project to the provinces that don't have a project. In that way, you empower the provinces to the revenues that come. And in doing so, Deputy Speaker, I want us to ensure that we streamline and we simplify the resource laws and the benefits that are going down to our landowners, our resource owners, to the provinces and to the LLGs and to the districts, so that there is no confusion, so that there is no rivalry, so that there is no arguments about who gets what. For example, in LEDLs, where guidelines have been abused or not followed at all. In sectoral programs, where there is no equity in the distribution that takes place. We need to look at all of this. We need to seriously look at the provincial government system, look at the other forms of government we have, the autonomy that we're talking about, financial autonomy that we gave to 3 provinces in Madang about 2 or 3 years ago. Are these things working? Are they for real, Deputy Speaker? And it is really, really serious that when we do come back, we take on board all of this and we enshrine that properly. We have taken back health functions from the provinces and put them under a PHA, directly under the national government. Former Minister for Health are sitting here. They can say that, well, your provinces, it's the consultation you run. Well, unfortunately, I want to tell you, I don't have a direct mandate and responsibility in the day-to-day administration of all health facilities. 8 posts, community health centers, hospitals, the staff, the drugs, and the delivery of all of this to my people. And yet who gets the blame? I get the blame. My open members get the blame. So we need to be really mindful of all these issues that we are talking about and simplify it. Agriculture is also controlled nationally. We put them into the various commodity boards. We've left policy with the Department of Agriculture. Is that working? Is that model working or no? Provinces are supposed to look after what? We're supposed to look after only extension. We don't have extension offices. Running business is the same. The idea was to have commerce and industry look after business, hand out the licenses, do the big stuff. At the provinces, there is little room. And I want us to support the SME programs that this government is now putting into action, because that is the way to go, to empower our people. We have to empower our people, especially, Deputy Speaker, the small people, those that want to sell buai, that want to sell the fish, that want to sell the handicrafts, mats, sago, cocoa, vegetables, do the little kakaruk farms and pigs, and run little trade stores. Those are the people that we must put the money directly. Have simple guidelines, Deputy Speaker. Not 10-page guidelines, simple guidelines, 1 or 2 pages. And have people helping us in the provinces to grant access to credit for our people. But I go back again to what I said, Deputy Speaker. I would like us to seriously look at the way that we are governing ourselves, look at the way we're sharing powers, look at the way we are giving resources out to the provinces, and to ensure that our public service minister, you shorten the time that you need to change our structures in the departments from the 60s to departments that are modern and capable with rules and laws meant for the 21st century.
Honourable Governor.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through as we come to the end of one more Parliament sitting week. Secondly, me like sorry, 1 or 2 leaders sent up, but me take him space. But I feel as we come to 1 o'clock and close of grievance debate time, Maki Masblo, Yumi Olgada, on both sides of the House, Maki Masblo, present generation of leaders, me kissing Masblo, Yumi Olgada in our country, and me like make him 1 or 2 words in commemoration, blow first anniversary, blow passing, blow the first Prime Minister of our country, great Grand Chief Loyumi, Lucy Mimi on 26th of February in 2021. Mr. Deputy Speaker, 1975, all probably me law country or some, and we are privileged that you may got Sir Julius is at law house one time you may got record or history or looking all then very young Papua New Guineans in their prime only step out nor lead him country into independence. The Grand Chief Somare then would have been 35 years old when he led the country as our first Prime Minister. If he was 35 in 1975, Deputy Speaker, he would have been 32 at 1972 when he was the first Chief Minister. And he would have been 28 or thereabouts 1968 when Emna Sepo Lapun all this only decided long forming Pangu Party. And in his passing, as we reflect, our generation of leaders today must see, if we're already above 40, if we're already above 50 years old, whether elected leaders in politics or in public service, the founders and fathers of our nation, they were still youthful Papua New Guineans in their late 20s and in the early 30s when they laid the cornerstone of our nation. Today's time, I see many Papua New Guineans in their late 20s and in their 30s. They're still dependent on their parents, spending a lot of time in Facebook and unnecessary things and not in serious pursuit to contribute towards making our country a better space. So maybe at this time when we reflect on his life, and I spent a lot of time reflecting on the lives of our fathers of our nation, they were men and women, because there were also women leaders back then. I think about Dame Josephine Abijah. You think about the late Dame Nahuruni, and many of our women leaders who were part of the leadership corps that led our country back then. They were young women and men only in their late 20s or in the 20s and in the early 30s who stepped out with big dreams to try to hold our country together, and they did. The backdrop of our national union in 1975, lest we forget, there were issues in East New Britain, for instance. There were issues in Bougainville, for instance. There were issues in some parts of Papua, the Papuan Besana movement. We were a nation that was just coming together by Christianity and by government, but it was an extremely notable feat where the fathers of our nation were able to unite us under one constitution, under one flag, under one parliament, and in the sovereignty we have today. And so in the eve of the anniversary of the passing of the great-grand chief of our country, I stand here today to pay great respect to him. He may have passed on, but certainly his leadership, his counsel, his words of wisdom, and his examples stand tall as high as all the highest mountains of our country. Mount William, Mount Gilliway, Mount Michael, Mount Otio, all the high mountains of our country, the legacies of Somare lives on, and I just want those legacies to inspire us. His death, and 1 year on reflecting his death at the eve of our national election that is coming. I just want to also say thank you to this body of leaders. I've been in Parliament now going 15 years. And those who came into Parliament with me in 2007 know the 2007 Parliament was ran. And 2012, but let me say that this Parliament, and to see members of Parliament sitting as late into this term here in Parliament and on a late Friday, it's just an indication that we are at work and you want to do work for your country. So we go to the elections, we will try our absolute best as the executive government to ensure that Electoral Commission does their job diligently, prudently, within time, within budget, and try to deliver a good election for our nation. And I just want to say, as we go to the elections, let's conduct ourselves with decorum, with dignity. Our brother that is on the opposite side or in another party be given respect where he or she deserves. And whatever is the outcome of our national election in 2022, and only God knows the combination of leaders that will come back, I just want to make some pointers. Having been served as this country's 8th Prime Minister, it has never been easy at the backdrop of political party in place, leadership contest. On one hand, you want to steer the ship, but on the other hand, you are standing, looking back and trying to ensure that you have a government that is always in good numbers. As we face the elections, I just want to propose to all body of leaders here, let's reflect on the spirit of which the fathers of our nation were able to stitch our diverse nation together at 1975. Unity of our national sovereignty at all costs must be maintained. Putting the country first ahead of province or ahead of electorate must be maintained or must be the core focus of all leaders who are privileged to sit in this house. Country comes first and everything else comes second. Because the national unity of this great nation of 1,000 tribes will ensure that we have the resource and the balance sheet combined to make our country better and serve our people better. The challenges in our country are so huge, you cannot fix it in 1 term or 2 terms. But the inspiration we continue to draw from the founders of our nation at 1975, and possibly as Governor New Ireland may confirm, but the budget was around 300 million kina, so to speak. Yet they were able to deliver our nation into nationhood. Today we have hindsight of 46 years or 47 years. By 2025 we'll have a hindsight of 50 years. And then going forward, I just want to ask us, what is it that we will pass on to the next generation. A United Nation, a nation together, a nation that is functioning and serving our people well. Number has gone now easily past 8 million and possibly facing into 10 million in the next few years. The example we learn from Sir Michael and others as we think of him being passed on is the fact that at his prime he was only but a man in his 30s and in his 40s. So for those of us who are now in our 50s and going 60s, we have no excuse of lack of experience or lack of education or lack of resources. To the best of our ability, for instance, in this term we've given most districts up to 40 million plus already. And talk about allocation, let me also our brothers on the other side. Treasurer, the good treasurer is working on some resource for the to catch up on what has been given on this side, so that you too can go and serve your people well and face election. Whatever it is, if you on the other side or on this side of the house, then you may lead the country well, and also think of some of us who may be on the other side. God only knows who comes in this space as we move into the future. But one thing I just want to reflect as in remembrance of Somare for the 1 year that he's passed on, that his character of reconciliation, forgiveness, tolerance, ensure that he has time for all. His character is an epitome, a reflection of what Papua New Guinean leaders must be. Some of these characters are timeless.
Honorable Prime Minister, your time has lapsed.
All right, thank you.
Since your own Grand Chief's statement, I allow you to make a 2-minute statement and close your debate.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So, me like asking our country, as you reflect, the passing belong Somare and 1 year on. The nation came together in unity. As you facing politics, you may making politics, long way below making politics, but we must at all costs try to unite our country, unite our diversity. Now, hold him country together as you may go out, because campaign time, some time below dirty, Sakama. Dirty mustn't be dirty elections for country. You can bagaram one man, but no can bagaram country in the process. Amila appeal long unity, blow yimi, long country. In the face of many contests that we go through, let us never sacrifice the unity of our beautiful country. It is in the unity of our nation that we will have the combined balance sheet to grow our country for the better going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable members, the question is that the grievances be noted. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, Acting Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that Parliament now be adjourned. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that Parliament now be adjourned to 10 a.m. Tuesday, 1st March 2022.
Honourable members, the question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The honourable members, I adjourn Parliament to 1st March 2022 on 10 a.m.